Hi everyone, welcome to today's class. So HTML and CSS are really very important languages because without them, even if you write the coolest backend, your users don't care about how cool your backend is. Things need to be attractive, yeah? But so some people choose to mainly focus on front end. That's CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. And some other people focus mainly on back end. That's database and processing the data that they later serve to the front end. And then some people decide to do them both. So they are full stack developers. So it depends on what you want to become. Though in Uganda, the Ugandan market, most people find themselves doing both because it's really quite expensive to hire a front end and hire a back end developer and pay them for something small for the Ugandan market. Yeah, but outside Uganda or online, if you're working online or anything, you can be able to choose any of the two or go full stack. Whichever you choose, you will get the pay that you want as long as you're good at it. Yeah, but in our course, I'll be covering both so that people can choose what they want to do, whether front end, back end, or full stack. So those who still have challenges with HTML and CSS, we shall be going into details later or in the course of the week or of the weeks or in between the weeks. I will be covering some pieces of HTML and CSS. For example, I bring a principle and then the video that I record is entirely about that principle. Yeah. Or I talk about a property, just a single property. For example, the background of an element. I talk about the background entirely in an example so that people really get to understand that. Yeah. But for such lessons, we shall not be having them via Zoom. I might record a video and then post it for you guys on YouTube, or I might go live on YouTube, and you guys can just be there as I explain it live on YouTube, or just I record it and then upload it. Yeah, but we shall do that as we progress with the course. So after covering HTML and CSS, we shall be covering now some of the back-end languages, and I had proposed in the email that we shall start with PHP. Yeah, because PHP to me is the simplest language to start with to learn back-end. C or C++ would be good, yeah, but you won't be using it so much in your development. For example, if you want to create web applications. So that's why I'm choosing PHP. Yeah, but the principles are almost the same, if not entirely the same. Because what you find in this language is what you find in the other language. Yeah, so today during this lesson, I'll just do some introduction. I know some of you have covered some of them. So I asked people to install XAMPP that has Apache, the server that is used to run PHP scripts, MySQL, the database backend, database engine, and I don't know whether people installed, but I had Ibra didn't install for some reasons. Yeah, but those of you already have, I think we shall work with that. And we make sure that for the next lesson, everyone is on board and we do something with our installations. So I'm just going to explain a few things for people, for clarity, for just clarity's sake, for those people who haven't covered a back-end programming language. Yeah, so like I said earlier, back-end programming languages, one, they are mainly used to process data. If your application or website is working with some data, for example, users or user details, things about users. If your users are doing anything, they are logging in. They are, for example, you have a blog, they are liking posts, they are also writing comments, things like that. Yeah, so it's better for such an application you save such things in a database, and to access the database, it's also advised that you use a back-end programming language, for example, PHP or Python or Java. Yeah, so we shall be covering some of those using PHP. Yeah, so I'm just going to share my screen. I'm sharing my screen from my virtual machine. So if you find any problem trying to install, please ask in the group so that people can try to help you. I know there are some people who have already installed, so they should be able to help you. So what I listed here are just a few basics about a back-end programming language. So one of them is variables, for example. So a variable, what is a variable? A variable is like
memory location.
Yes, it's a memory location, but I wanted to give it in a simple way, not in a programming way. So a variable is what should we call it? Like a name of something or a title of something. So for example, if you give like okay, something that describes something, maybe like a characteristic of something, like your name, your age, your height, the color of the shirt that you're wearing, type of car you drive, so things like that. So yeah, but in programming, like Ayub mentioned, it's a memory location. So it's like a container where you store something. For example, you have a glass. In a glass, you store there water. You have a plate. You in a plate you serve food on a plate. So a variable is actually like a container, which is a memory location in your RAM, the RAM of your computer. Yeah. So a variable is like a space part of your RAM where you can keep anything. Like you can keep there a word, you can keep there a number. Uh, like you type the word hi, how are you? So you can keep that in that memory location, yeah, which is a variable. So in programming, we call such storage containers variables. So you can always keep anything there. So we shall be working with variables in everything that we do in programming, because in programming you need to store things in a variable in your memory, in your RAM, to later call them or access them so that you can use them to do other things. Yeah. So talking about data types, a data type is the type of that thing that you store in a variable. So for example, integers, you have like a number like 10,000 shillings, just the number 10,000, you want to store it in your memory so that later you can get it and add it to some other number. So you have strings like words, like sentences. You have floats, those numbers with decimal points. You have nulls, there are very many data types as we are going to look at them. You can also create your own data types. So we shall be looking at all of those ones. Then we have the program flow control, how you want to control the code that you write, what it does, yeah, how it flows. For example, you can say, I want my program to count from 1 to 10. So you need to do the counting 10 times from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Or you say, I want to add the number 2 to a certain number like 10 times, yeah? So you do that using loops, examples of loops. So a loop is something that repeats itself. So you're just repeating things. Do this number of times. Like it's like running around the pitch. You say you're running 12 laps. So a loop is like that, something that repeats a certain number of times. We have while loops, for loops for each. We shall be looking at all those loops. Then we have conditionals. In programming, there's something we call conditionals. So a condition is like you ask, is this true or false? If it is true, what should I do? If it is false, what should I do? So in such cases, we can use things like if statements. We shall be looking at them. An if statement, it has the if part and then the else part, or it can just have the if part. For example, you can have like two numbers. You want to compare two numbers and see whether they are equal. So you have one variable called number one, and then another one called number 2. And number 1 has the number 1, and then number 2 has the number 2. And then you want to compare and see whether 1 is actually less than 2. Yeah. So you use an if. You say if 1 is less than 2, then you do this. Or if 1 is not less than 2, then do that. So whichever comes out as true, it does what you want it to do. And if it is false, it also does what you want to do. Yeah. So we have input and output. So input is if we want to add things to our program, how do we add them? So we can read from anywhere. We can read from the database. If we stored things in a database, we can use our program to read from there. If we stored things in a file, for example, you have a text file, you can read things from there. You can read things from devices. For example, if you have like a scanner, you can always read from there. If you have a USB, you can read from there. And then output is what you display to the user. Yeah. For example, a web page, you can just output things to a web page. You can output things to a console. You can also output to the device, to any device that you want to send what you have processed to. And then we have data structures. These ones are used to organize the data. For example, you have items. How do you organize them and arrange them? So we have arrays, lists, sets. Sets are like sets, the sets that you have been covering in school. So we shall be looking at all those ones, maps, dictionaries, and etc. Data structures were put there to simplify programming, as we are going to look at that in details, to simplify the way data is organized and accessed, arranged and sorted, things like that. Then algorithms, these are functions or methods. So if you have code that adds two numbers like 1 plus 2, yeah? So you can just term that as a function called add, yeah? Or a method called add, and it takes two numbers, like the first number and the next number that you want to add to. So you can call that some sort of function or algorithm that does the adding. So you give it the two numbers, 1 and 2, and then it returns the result, which is the sum. Yeah, so we shall be looking at all algorithms. So that's just an example of a short algorithm, but you can have an algorithm that does really a lot of things, or a function that does a lot of things. Yeah. For example, a function that gets a number, it adds it, it subtracts it, it multiplies it, and then it checks whether it is greater than a certain number. And then if it is great, it adds it. If it is less, it. So it can really be simple or very complex. Yeah. We shall be looking at all that. Any question? Did I confuse anyone? So the tool that I'm using is, you can use any text editor. Yeah. Notepad++ to Sublime Text, PHP Storm. You could even use the console if you have the command line. If PHP is accessible, you can actually use your it's a Ubuntu console, but even if you're on Windows and you do CMD, you should be able to get there. Yeah, so you could just, if PHP is in your path, you could just do PHP-A, and you're in PHP and ready to write PHP in your console. If you just, for example, if I say echo 2, it should be able to echo the 2 down. Yeah, so like I was saying, you can use the console, you can use any text editor to run that. But if you're on Windows and you decide to use the text editor, it means you need to run your things in the browser to see that they run your scripts, your PHP scripts. So you need to like create a file and write your files there. And whenever you want to see whether what you have made works, you have to reload the browser. Yeah. Okay, magnify. Is it readable now? It should be. Okay. All right. Yeah. So then people using their command line, like I told you, PHP-A. If that doesn't work, it means PHP is not in your path. You can always ask in the group and people help you in the WhatsApp group. So we have just covered, just talked about briefly about variables, data types, program flow control, conditions, input and output, data structures, and algorithms, just in brief. But in case you don't understand any of those, you can always ask and we explain. Yeah, so I wanted to briefly talk about some of these for today, since today is just introduction of back-end programming for back-end programming language, and we're using PHP for this session. So the tool I'm using is called Tinkerwell. It's for PHP diehards. So if you're a PHP diehard, you can always look for Tinkerwell. It's a great tool that it executes your PHP code as you write it. Yeah, you can set it to write it automatically, to run it automatically as you write, or just you write and then click a button for it to run it, and the output goes on your right here. Yeah. So this tool was designed by a certain programmer from Belgium. He's also a PHP diehard. He's called Marcel. So he wanted to simplify the way people write and test PHP code, PHP programs. Yeah. So he came up with this tool. It's some sort of an extension of a PHP package that is used in Laravel, the PHP framework, called Tinker. Don't worry about those fancy names. We shall cover them in the near future. Yeah. So basically the way it works is, for example, if I write a name, a variable, this is how we write variables in PHP. You put a $sign before the name, and you start it with a letter, whether lowercase or uppercase. Yeah. So I can do name is equal to, I open the quotes, Alan. Yeah. So whatever I write is actually executed automatically on the right. Yeah. So when I close and then I say session, what's this session? I say session is equal to programming. Yep. So it prints everything that I do. Yeah. So basically with this tool, you actually know what you're writing and the output of what you're writing, without having to write a lot of code and then at the end of it, you find that you have very many bugs that you don't know where to start from and things like that. So if you get a bug on that line, for example, I forget this to close, it will give me null. Then I ask myself, why is this null? Yeah, things like that. Yeah, so it's I think it's for $14.9 for forever. So you just pay once and you use forever. Yeah. So in case any of you is a PHP diehard, save that money and grab this thing. Yeah. So I have two variables here. One is called name and the value. So on the left, we have the name of the variable where we want to store the value, which is actually on the right. So the name of the variable is name. And then the value to store there is Alan. And session is the name of the variable. And then programming is the value to store there. Yeah. So once in our program we have these, we can always say, for example, in PHP, we use the echo word to print out, to print to the output, the screen, for example. Yeah, I can say echo the name. So when we are outputting, we actually write where we stored. We don't write the value. You can echo Alan, but that doesn't make sense because what if the name is no longer Alan? What happens? Yeah. So we don't echo the value, we echo the variable. For example, name. So you do your $sign and then the name of the variable. I think I should just change this. Let me just say first name. Yeah. I can do first underscore name or just first name or just first name, whichever works for you. You go with that. Yeah. But for variables, I prefer, which one do I prefer? Camel case. All right, let's use camel case. Yeah, where you write a word, the first word is lowercase, then the second word begins with an uppercase. But that's just the naming convention that you like to make your things even. Yeah. So I see we have an error here on the right saying PHP notes undefined variable name. Okay, name is undefined. So we change the name. So we need to change the name here too. So I think you can see how it is showing you the errors before you even compile. Yeah. Yeah. But once you compile that, once you correct that, you're good to go. So first name, we have a variable called first name and we give it a value Alan. So what happened if now we have a different user who is not Alan? For example, we have a user called Barbara. Barbara is a hard name to spell. Barbara. Don't penalize me for misspelling your name. Barbara. Is it Barbara, Barbara? Like that. Ah. Barbara, is that your name? Oh, yeah. All right. Yes. So the name, if the name changed, if you look at this output here, someone is saying something. That's my name. All right. Okay. Yeah. So you can see the use of using variables is we could actually use values, but when you use values, it is just static. Like you can never, what's the use of programming if you cannot change something automatically or magically? Yeah. So automatically is if I put here Alvan, the name should change to Alvan, which is down here actually. This is the line 13 is the line that we are outputting. Yeah. But whenever I change the value of that variable, yeah, it actually changes, which means first name here, this first name variable is actually a memory location, like our colleague Ayub defined what a variable is. Yeah, Like in your RAM, there is a space that we have booked and called it first name, yeah? So in that space, we save the name Alvan, yeah? So whenever we output here, we are outputting what is in that memory space. So whenever we change the value of what is there, it actually changes the value of that memory space. So even if we are somewhere like down here and then we call that memory space, it will always have this value here, yeah? So another interesting thing about variables is you can actually change them as your script or system executes. For example, here we could actually give another value to first name. For example, we put Alan, yeah? So if we put Alan and then I do this echo again in the same file, in the same script, I echo first name. You can see first it echoed Ayub, and then second it echoed Alan. So it means now we have changed the value of first name to Alan. So whatever follows will no longer be Ayub. Ayub has been replaced by Alan on line 15. Any questions about variable?
Is the use of single quotes the same as the use of double quotes when you're naming the variables?
Okay, thank you for that question. So that will depend, it will depend on a programming language. Some languages actually don't allow you to write single quotes for strings and or double quotes for characters. So a character is, for example, if I say A, that's just one character. Then a string is if it is more than one character, like Ayub, that's more than one character, yeah? So that becomes a string. So in some programming languages, they only allow you to write, I think Java that does that. They only allow you to write a character in single quotes. Like if you try putting double quotes, it rejects it. Like, yeah, but PHP is different. For it, it doesn't care whether it's single quotes or double quotes. It will take it as a string. Whether it's a character or what, for it, it takes it as a string, yeah? So in PHP, it doesn't matter, but in some languages, it matters. Yeah, but to keep it professional, it's most people tend to use single quotes for characters and then double quotes for strings, like more than one character. Yeah, but in PHP, it really doesn't matter what you use.
Is that Tinkerwell version for Ubuntu only or also Windows have it?
Tinkerwell, there is Tinkerwell for, I think, every operating system. There is for Mac, Linux, and then Windows. But it's a really a very good tool that will teach you a lot of PHP. Like you can just do any mistake here, yeah, and the debugging is in real time, yeah. For example, like you can see what I wrote here on the right. If you check on the right, it shows you PHP parser error, syntax error, unexpected variable on line 3. Yeah. So ignore the it is showing me line 3 because it is ignoring the comments. Yeah. Yeah, but you can see, for example, if we take this to be one line because they are just comments, then you see first name. And then you see this should be line 3, yeah? So to just see that, I will just remove this and then see which line it is telling me, yeah? Okay, it's telling me line 2. So this is line 1, line 2, and unexpected variable on line 2. So when you see something like this, it means on line 2, you did something that is unexpected, which simply means that why is something on line 2 unexpected? It means line 1 is actually not correct. Something must be wrong. If line 2 is unexpected, it means something must be wrong with line 1. And as you can see, there is something wrong with line 1. Yeah. First of all, in PHP, for every end of line, you actually have to terminate it. like that. Yeah. That's a semicolon. For PHP, you don't put the semicolon, you always get an error. So what the semicolon does is it tells the PHP parser that the system that is reading your program, that this line ends here. Yeah. So whenever you end a line or statement, please endeavor to put that semicolon, or else you will get errors throughout. Yeah. So which error do we have now? Undefined variable first name on line 3. Okay. So we put Ayub here. Okay, and we are sorted. Yeah, so you can actually kill many things. You can call a function, for example. Which function do you know in PHP? Anyone?
Function for date.
Oh, the date, the most interesting function. Okay, so we can just call the date function, for example, date, like that. What should we do? Date expects at least one parameter. Yeah. So you can see that we cannot call date without giving it a parameter. Yeah. So we give it like y, which means yeah. So we do that. It prints for us the yeah. 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 Month, date, the time, hours, each seconds, minutes and seconds. Yeah. So I think you can see how if you mess anything up, it will always just tell you that this is not how they call this function. Like you need to give a variable, yeah. So things like that, yeah. Or you can do, for example, we have our first name as Mariam. Yep. And we want to echo Mariam's first name, but with lowercase letters. You see the first M is capital, so you can just do string to lower, yeah? And then we just call it, and then they tell us string to lower expects exactly one parameter. So we give it our first name, yeah? And then it turns Mariam's name into lowercase, yeah? We could do string to upper, and then like that. Yeah, so it's really a very, very interesting tool. That's why I recommend you to get it. Yeah, so away from Tinkerwell, any questions on the variables? Because I just want to just touch a little on each of these, because this is just introduction. Yeah. Afande, you're very quiet. I know you're a beginner in this, so please say something if we are really losing you. Looks like Afande is following. Hmm?
Yeah, like the after the lesson
Yes?
that I'm attentive. I'll
What?
make a comment after.
No. You should make the comment now, because what we are going in, if you don't get the variable, you might not get it at all. So it's better you try to tell us what you understand and what you don't understand, and we see if there's any way we can help you.
Okay, I'm going to be sharing it with you.
Why don't you share it with the whole class?
Okay, but I'm going to be talking, right?
Yeah, it's okay. You can talk. You tell us right now what you understand by a variable, or if you don't understand it, tell us. No.
Okay, the fact is that I'm somehow confused. Yeah. Somehow it's confused.
So
Yeah.
where exactly are you confused?
Yeah, like on those like those examples, yeah, the examples that you're giving, and even there to so I find myself like when I'm confused. little bit confused.
Well, when you say a little bit confused, is where exactly are you confused? What don't you understand? Like in that statement, for example, when I say you write in PHP, there is something called a variable, and a variable is like a storage place where you keep your values. For example, we have a name, and the name is Mariam, and we want to keep that name in our RAM. Yeah. So to keep it in the RAM, we have to like allocate or designate a space for keeping that name called Mariam. Yeah. And so we designate that space in our RAM, and then we call it first name. And then in that space called first name, we save the word, the name Mariam. Yeah. So we keep it there. So whenever we want to get what we stored from that first name, we just need to call the name of that location, because we called that location first name. Yeah. So we just call first name like that. And then the word echo is like print it out, like echo. Echo means like print it out. Yeah. So when we say echo what is in first name, it goes to that memory location in your RAM that we called first name. It reads what is there, which is the word Mariam, or the name Mariam that we had stored there, and then it echoes it out, which is what you see on the right. Yeah. So is there anything very confusing there specifically?
Yeah, now I've got it. Now I've got you, my bro.
You understand it?
Yeah, now, yeah. Like
Okay.
now I'm on the right track.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ayub is asking about the delimiters. All right. So Ayub is asking about these things. Yeah. So you see PHP pass error, syntax error, unexpected. Yeah. So what this tool does, I forgot to mention, is the interface it gives you already has all this written. So all you do is write your code. Yeah. But for example, in case you were just writing your where is my Sublime text? Yeah. In case you are just writing your own PHP, you would just need to, yeah, if you are writing your own PHP, you will need to include PHP tags, yeah, like PHP, like that. And then the closing PHP tag. And you write everything PHP, all your code, all your variables, everything inside those tags. So the reason you need to do this is for the processor, the PHP language processor, to understand that this is PHP code inside here. Yeah. So you would say first name equal to Yup. Yeah. And then you terminate, and then you just save. Let me just add on the text. Yeah. And then you just save. Let me just choose the language here, PHP. Yeah. And then you just save. Yeah. So whenever you're trying to create a file, don't forget these tags. Yeah. Actually, even if you omit the last one, but let the first one always be there to make the processor understand that this is a PHP file. Specifically for PHP, you need to do this in a file if you want to save the file and then execute it later. Okay. Yeah, but when you're using Tinkerwell, it already has that included. So actually what Tinkerwell, it's like I'm trying to make this session a Tinkerwell session, yeah, but it's really a good tool. So what Tinkerwell does is it actually comes with Laravel in the background, yeah. So you can actually run any Laravel function from here. For example, let me see. let me see. Which Laravel function can I run? Yeah, for example, I can run config. Is a config function. Yeah, so I can just run app.name. Yep, and then it gives me the name of the app is Laravel. I can do app.envelope. I think you can see everything here. Yeah. So I don't know if any of you has interfaced with Laravel, the PHP framework. We shall look at it if you haven't. Don't worry. Yeah, but Tinkerwell comes with Laravel in its back end, so you can always run anything Laravel in Tinkerwell. So it's that amazing. Okay. Why don't we stop here? Does anyone have something that they want me to talk about? Because I don't want these sessions to be really very long, since we are still in the beginning stages of this thing. Yes, so among those things I've listed above in a comment, does anyone have anything specific that they want me to address? Because I'll be addressing them in the next lessons if that's okay. Or should I just go over them chap chap?
Chap chap.
All right, let me just rush through them. Yeah, so we've finished our variables and we finished variables, data types. Yeah, so data types is, I'll just give an example, age. I say, I'm mentioning some people's age here. No. Mariam, should we share your age?
You can say and put 15.
Mariam, are you okay with 15? Oh, we put forever.
Yes.
Oh, we put forever 21. Let's put forever 21. So, age. Yeah, data types. Yeah, we have covered strings. For example, the name Mariam is a string because we put it in quotes. Yeah, so that makes it a string, and it has characters. Characters. So these can be alphanumeric characters. They can be alphabet numbers, as long as they are in quotes. PHP takes them as strings. Yeah, you could have Mariam 1, Mariam 2, Mariam 3. All of them will be taken as strings as long as they are in quotes. You could even have a number like 1, 2, 3. As long as it is in quotes, it will be taken as a string. Yeah. Yeah. So we have numbers or integers. That's age. I think you can see here we just wrote 21 and it accepted it without complaining because 21 is actually a number. Yeah, is an integer. So if just in case you did Mariam without quotes, PHP would complain. Use of undefined constant Mariam. Yeah. So to make it a string, it has to be in between quotes, either double or single. Yeah. Then we can have height. You can say height is how many? 1.8. Mariam will kill me today. 1.8. Whichever it is, whether meters or kilometers, don't worry, just know it is 1.8. Don't ask. Okay, so yeah, that's the height. So you see we have a decimal point there, 1.8. Yeah, so that's a float, which is also accepted. Yeah, so those are some of the data types. Or if we don't know the height, we can actually say null. Pardon? Yes.
Does it mean we don't define in PHP whether it's a float or string, or we just put it there and then it takes for itself? Or
okay. Okay. PHP is not a strictly typed language. You can actually define variables without defining their data type. But for some languages that like Java or like C, C++, it's a must to define the type of the value that you want to store there. But with PHP, it is actually smart enough to assign the type of the value. Like, for example, if you say age 21, it will know this is an integer. Yeah, it's an int. If you say first name is equal to Mariam, it will assign string to first name. So you don't need to define the type. Yeah, but with PHP 7.4, you can actually do this. Yeah, you can actually say int, but I don't know which version I'm running. But okay, with class variables, you can actually give a type in PHP 7.4, and then it doesn't complain. Yeah, but PHP, whether you give it a type or not, PHP is actually not strictly typed, so you don't need to give it a type. Yeah, so that's why people used to discourage PHP for developers, because they said it gives too much freedom to developers, and some developers end up playing with it and creating not so friendly code to other developers, that you find someone is writing spaghetti code that is all messed up and not following any rules, any programming rules, but the code works. Yeah, but to other people, it's very hard for them to understand. Yeah, but there are some PHP programming rules or conventions that I will introduce in the near future. There are many things to introduce in the near future. Yeah, that can actually put your code to the standards of almost every great PHP developer, that when you write it, yeah, people won't complain, that you can even contribute to open source and people accept your pull requests on GitHub, and because your code has the standards that every professional PHP developer uses. All right, yeah, so those are some of the data types that we have, and okay, let me just talk about program flow or loops. So a loop is a loop. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, a loop is something that repeats a certain number of times. So for example, if I talk about the while loop, so to talk about the while loop, I will just create, okay, count. I'll create a variable called count. Then I say 5 times, yeah? So I say 5. So count is equal to 5. So I want us to count 5 times, yeah? So I will use the while loop. So the way while works is you write the word while, and then you open brackets. So talking about a while loop is you say while, then inside the brackets, or the what is the other name for these brackets? Parentheses. Yes. Yeah. So inside the brackets, you write the condition. So while we say while count, okay. So we say while count, this count here that we gave a value of 5. While count is greater than 1. Yeah. We can say echo count. Count now at, let me just say echo the word now at, okay, Now at count. Yes. Aha, where is it? Syntax error, unexpected. My computer is acting slow. I don't know why. Maybe it's processing some things. I know why. I had actually killed my computer. Did you know how I killed my computer? I gave it a loop that doesn't end. Yeah. So you should try and avoid those things because they will freeze your computer while programming. Like giving your computer a loop that actually doesn't end. Yeah. So let me just do this. Let me just concatenate. Okay, a new line. Oh, actually, it's supposed to be like this. Now at 1, now at 4. Okay. Some of you are wondering, what is that end that is putting? It's a new line character. You can put it there to go to a new line. Or you can just say PHP end of line. Yeah. Yeah, this PHP end of line works like the \n. Yeah, this is a global PHP variable. Yeah, so this is our loop works. Our loop says while count, which is at 5 right now, is greater than 0. So it checks. Actually, it checks. I should have talked about if conditions before talking about loops because loops usually check. Yeah, so it checks count is greater than 0, and then it echoes this now at count. So whichever you see count here now at 5, now at 4, now at 3, now at 2, now at 1. Yeah. So what it does is while count is greater than 0, and that means it's true because initially count is at 5. Yeah. So it's true. If it is true, the loop executes. Yeah. If it is not true, the loop exits, and then we are here. Yeah. So it means echo now at the current count, and then count minus minus, which means reduce the count by 1. Or we can say minus equals 1, which also means reduce the count by 1. Yeah, but we shall be looking at all these in details. Yeah. So until the count if the count is greater than 0, do this. Yeah. And then after doing it, reduce the count by 1. So the first time it reduces a count by 1, it becomes 4. Second time 3, second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, it becomes a 1. And count is for the fifth time, count is 0, and count is no longer greater than 0. So the loop exits. Just like that. Yeah. So that's basically about a loop. That's a while loop. We shall look at other loops, but they all kind of do the same. Then conditionals is, for example, let me just hash this out. I just comment it so it doesn't run. So conditionals, testing it with the if. So it's if inside here, you put the condition if count is equal to 5, you can say if count is equal to 5, echo count is 5. Okay, count is, you can say count is count, and it works. Or count is 5. Yeah. So I'm just trying to introduce some more PHP magic here. you can actually write variables inside your quotes, and then they work without concatenating, like count is count, and then things work like that. Or you could just do this and then concatenate, do this. Yeah, so we can just do that. How many minutes do we have to go? Okay, we still have like 10 minutes. Yeah, or we can just do the concatenation. We use the dot to add strings. Yeah, so we get count, then the dot adds it to the is, space is, and then count. So things like that. Then you can do an else. I know these are basics, just for to have an overview. Echo, you can echo count. Count is not 5. Yeah, like that. So you can see here, it is saying 5 is 5, which doesn't make sense. So let's say, just say count is 5, and then we say here, we say count, just the word count, not the variable. Count is not 5. But what do we get? Count is 5. Do you know why? Because here on line 16, our count is 5. But if we try to change it to 7, what will output is count is not 5, because we have changed count and it is 7. So if statements just check for the truth of a statement. So you could do equals. So to check whether something is equal to, you use double equal signs, because a single equal sign is for assigning a value to a variable. So to check, you use the double equals. You could use greater than. You could use greater than or less than, all those checking signs that you could use. Input, output, we have looked at that. We shall look at it in details. Output, for example, is echo, which prints something, and then input is just us providing the variable name, like Mariam. That's also input. Yeah. Then data structures, like arrays, lists, sets. Just talk about an array. For example, we have an array of names. Yeah. And we create the names. So an array, you use square brackets. So you give it the values separated by commas. I'm just going to fill names here, like Mariam, like Alvan, like Yub. Yeah, just like that. Yeah. Or you could also do it like you say array, or you could just say array, and then in brackets you just do the same. So both the two methods work. Yeah. That one and this one. Yeah, they both work the same. Yeah, this and the one below it both work the same. They both create an array. Yeah. So that's basically a data type called a data structure called an array that is used to store values which are similar. Yeah. So for example, if we wanted to get the first item in that array, we just call the names array, and then we access the first item, which has an index of 0, which is a Yub. Yeah. So arrays, we access them by using the index, not the number. Yeah. For example, if we have 3 items, we have Ayub, Alvan, and Mariam. Yeah. So Ayub will be the first item in our array. Yeah, but we don't say names 1. yeah, because arrays start counting from 0, yeah, like the first item is the 0th item, yeah. So that means Alvan will be 1, and then Mariam will be 3. Sorry, 2, yeah. So Ayub 0, Alvan 1, Mariam 2. So if we put 2, we should be able to get Mariam. Yeah, so basically that's it about data structures. Then algorithms, we looked at the function. We looked at the function that changes people's names to uppercase or lowercase, like for example, string to lower, yeah. And then we give it variable names, and we put 2, we put 1, which is actually Alvan, and then output will be Alvan with lowercase, yeah. Yeah, so basically, so to create your own function or algorithm, you can just say function name to uppercase. So this is just your own naming, right? Yeah, and then you give it a name, and inside you write your logic inside that function. So for example, we say return string to upper, yeah, and then this name that we are passing here, for example, name, yeah. So down here, if we call this function called name to uppercase, it should be able to uppercase every name that we give it. So for example, if we give it a name called, in our names array, we want to give it Ayub, who is index 0, yeah. So we say names, we put open square brackets and then 0, which is Ayub. And then you can see Ayub is here, uppercase, yeah? So this is a simple algorithm that takes in a name called, this one that we've just given it, takes in a name, any name, and then turns the name into uppercase and then returns it, yeah? So for example, we could even just give it a random name as a string, yeah? For example, Joel, yeah? And then it will turn Joel into uppercase. So we have written a simple algorithm that turns names or words into uppercase. Yeah, so basically that's it about a run through about all these. We shall look at more complex and simpler versions of all this in the future, but this is just for the introduction. Any questions? We have 3 minutes.
Question.
Yes.
The function name to uppercase, is it predefined like in the libraries, or it's something we've just made now?
Yeah, thank you. So name to uppercase is a function that we've just created ourselves. But what is actually in the PHP, what is actually in PHP is actually what is here, string to upper. What we are returning, the string to upper function is a PHP function, yeah? But the name to uppercase, we have just come up with that. We can always change its name to uppercase, 1, 2, 3, and then when we call it here as name to uppercase, 1, 2, 3, it should be able to run. So we can just always come up with our names, our own names. Just create a function.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes, did I confuse someone? If I confused you, don't worry. We shall unconfuse each other in the coming lessons when I'm touching piece by piece, not trying to give a whole overview of everything concerning backend programming in PHP.
Okay, Harlan.
Yes.
How do you define lists?
In PHP?
Yes.
Okay, so in PHP, actually in PHP, all data, the most, if not all, data structures that are actually come pre-embedded in PHP and are not custom created by a developer, they are all actually built on an array. Yeah. So we can just use an array to represent a map. We can use an array to represent a list, a set, a dictionary, anything. So you just use an array to create a list. So for example, here I can say names is a list. Names is a list of names. And that makes it a list.
Okay.
Yeah. So PHP is very open in such a way that for certain principles, you just have to implement them and they will work. Yeah. But when you look at languages like Python, you might find that a list is mutable and like a tuple, which is also like a list, but it is immutable. So like a tuple, you cannot change its elements, but a list, you can actually change its elements. But in PHP, you can do anything you want with your data structure if it is built on an array, unless you set your own rules to guide that data structure.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Any more questions? Alvan, should I assume that everything is clear? We are ready to roll and start working on these things one by one? Or the overview has been confusing and people are actually waiting for that moment when we tackle things one by one? Yeah, so this has been a basic introduction, just basic, just to give you an overview. I don't think we have even covered much. Yeah, but so
Okay, great.
I would recommend PHP for someone who wants to design websites because it's growing, first of all, and it has a very active developer community for if you're actually using it for developing web apps. Right now, it's really very active. Yeah, so that's why I would recommend it. Yeah, though after at some point we shall also be looking at some other languages like Python for also developing web apps. Yeah, but once you're good at PHP, the rest of the other languages should be a walkover. All right, I think we can.
A moment, Alan.
Yes.
Sorry, what's the difference between the functions and methods?
Okay, the function and method, the naming could actually depend on what programming language that you use. So you find a function in Java is called a method, and in PHP it's called a function. Yeah, and in Python it's also called a method. Yeah, but there is really not much of a difference between a function and a method, though. Some programmers argue that functions are usually general and methods are attached to a class. For example, in object-oriented programming, if you have a class and it has methods attached to it. For example, you have a class called dog, and then you have a method called can bark. Yeah, so they usually attach methods to classes. Yeah, but that method in a class is actually a function. Yeah, so that could be just the difference, that the method is usually attached to a class and A function is just a standalone thing that does its own thing. Yeah, but the way they function is they function the same. They all take parameters and then return the results.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for attending today's class. See you in the next one.